The following WCIA3 sports presentation is brought to you by Lohman Ray Insurance Group and Illinois State University. This is the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show.
Welcome to the Friday Football Fever Playoff Show. I'm Brett Behrens. Craig Schote and Marley Weirder will join us a little later. But we welcome the stars of the show, two Hall of Fame coaches back for the fourth year, and Dick Duval and Stan Winky. Guys, thanks so much for being here. We're going to break down all the brackets coming up in this half-hour show, so let's get it started. 256 teams spread across 8 classes from all over the state are in the playoffs. 37 of those are from right here in the WCIA3 viewing area. That's the same number as last year's qualifiers. The playoff points were at 29. They were at 38 last season. And everyone is trying to get to DeKalb. That's the site of this year's 8 state championship games hosted by Northern Illinois University. It rotates every year between the U of I and NIU. So let's get to the brackets. The matchups were released on the IHSA Playoff Pairing Show, seen on our sister station right here on WCIX 49. There are 9 teams from the WCIA3 viewing area in Class 1A, all in the south portion of the bracket, headlined by Central A&M as the #1 seed. Fisher and Cumberland play in the 8-9 game in a rematch of last year's first round matchup that the Bunnies won. 4-seed Arcola hosts Tri-County. That's a repeat from week 7 when the Riders blew out the Titans 62-20. We'll get back to Central A&M in just a moment because they are certainly favored to make a deep run here. But I'm curious about these rematches, guys, because we see it a lot. It's nothing new. But how do you approach this as a coach? Because you know Fisher and Cumberland remember a lot from that game last year.
Well, I'm sure Fisher's talking about the fact that, you know, there's a different team playing them this year. That's not the same guys that were there last year. And the other thing, if you look at it, Cumberland's probably played a little bit tougher schedule. There's 5 teams in their conference in the playoffs, where Fisher's only faced 2 teams in their conference in the playoffs. So I think Cumberland is going to be there to prove that last year was not the typical Cumberland team that they're going to face.
Yeah, I know, Dick, you've had a couple of those matchups as well with St. Joe and Unity along the way, and those are always tough either way, whether you won or lost, for the teams to go about. Meanwhile, the odds-on favorite to get to DeKalb from the south is Central A&M. The Raiders finished their first undefeated regular season in 18 years. They finished second back in 2001. The Raiders averaged a Central Illinois Conference best 44 points per game this season, including a close 2-point road win over St. Teresa. The Bulldogs are a 3 seed in Class 2A. After a run to the quarterfinals last year as a 13 seed, the Raiders say they're ready to make another deep run, this time with the target on their back.
To go 9-0 and be the 1 seed means a lot to us, but we're not really focused on that. We're just focused on game by game, taking it team by team, and hopefully we can get the job done this Saturday.
Everybody starts 0-0, so our expectations every week to go 1-0, and hopefully we have a good week of practice, get ourselves prepared for Havana, and we'll see where we're at.
Central A&M hosts Havana 1 o'clock on Saturday. And Stan, you've seen Central A&M a lot. You've seen them in person this year. They're led by Connor Heaton at quarterback, Jacob Parody at receiver. What do you like about them and their chances maybe to get to a semifinal, because it looks pretty clear and cut to get there?
They're a very good team. A lot of multi-sport athletes. They've had great runs in basketball, and a lot of kids, they don't specialize. They come over to football and they carry it over. And Heaton at QB, Hutchins at running back, Parody's probably the best wide receiver I've seen in small school football, maybe in my career. And they've got a bunch of nasty boys in front. Probably the one thing that could hurt them is 29 guys dressed. So, you know, they can't afford an injury, but I would pick them to go a long ways.
Fisher is back in the postseason for the 3rd straight year. WCIA3's Craig Schote joins us now and has more on the 8-seeded Bunnies, who are looking to take another step forward.
Fisher won their first playoff game since 2005 last season. This year, they're looking to take another step forward with 2 familiar names. When your team mascot is the Bunnies, you better be quick on your feet.
We're not the biggest guys, but, you know, we're pretty darn fast, and so I think it really fits our scheme, and, you know, it just fits us as a football team.
The ground game is what makes the Bunnies go, and Fisher has one of the best running backs in the area in Tyler Wilson. The senior has 1,863 yards on the season and broke the school record for rushing yards in a single game in their Week 4 win over Madison. His 452 yards that game is more than any other player on his team has this entire season.
It was kind of like their team, they weren't very good defensively, so the holes were just opening up a lot, and it was just pretty easy yards.
While Wilson is the workhorse, he also has the help of Will Delaney at quarterback. This is his 2nd full season at QB and helps keep defenses guessing when they get too focused on Wilson.
I think we do a good job balancing everything. I think
our run game opens up pass game opens up the run game. So I think we're really balanced, and our scheme does a good job of taking care of business there.
The Bunnies and Pirates kick off at 2 o'clock on Saturday in Fisher.
Craig, thanks. Here's the bottom half of the 1A South bracket. Argenta Oriena is the 2 seed. They host North Green. Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond is back in the postseason for the first time in 5 years. They make the long trip to Carrollton. Salt Fork gets in the postseason at 5-4. They're rewarded with a 3.5-hour bus ride to Camp Point Central, while 6 seed Athens rounds out the area contingent. So we've got 4 teams here in this south part of the bracket. Camp Point Central makes a great run last year, Dick, but you say you like Athens here as well.
Yeah, I think Athens, coming out of the conference, they come with playing Williamsville and they play Moreau Forsyth. I mean, they've faced some tough teams all year. I don't think you can overlook those guys, but Argenta has skilled kids in the backfield, and Camp Point Central got there last year, and I think they're primed to try to get there again, but I think Athens might be the dark horse in the South.
All year long, we worked with the Eastern Illinois Food Bank to help tackle hunger throughout Central Illinois. Each week, we featured 2 schools for our Tackle Hunger campaign, asking students, teachers, and communities to come together to collect cans of food during the week and monetary donations during the game. And once again, you delivered. 111,011 meals were donated in 9 weeks. To compare, we had just 21,000 meals last season. Thanks to all who contributed. Time for our first break here on the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show, but we're not even close to being done yet. The loaded 2A bracket is next, featuring 11 area teams. We'll hear from the Clifton Central Comets after they go 9-0, plus we take a trip to Moreau Forsyth, where the Trojans are looking to get back to the state finals for the 8th time in the last 11 years. That and more as we continue here on the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show. We're on to Class 2A now with 11 area teams. Let's start on the north side. Watseka draws the 8th seed. They'll host Tremont. 2-time defending state champ Gibson City Melvin Sibley is in an unfamiliar spot, a 5 seed. The Falcons take on Rushville Industry. And Clifton Central, one of 3 unbeaten teams on the north. The Comets are a 3 seed. It's the second time Hall of Fame coach Brian Spooner has led the Comets to an undefeated regular season. Clifton is a 3-time Sangamon Valley Conference champ and say they're ready to compete past the first and second round as they try to make it back to the quarterfinals for the first time since 2014.
I still don't think we played our best football yet. We have had issues, on both sides of the ball at times, and so we're glad to be 9-0. I think that the seeding is probably the main reason why.
The past couple of weeks, we've been putting stuff together. We started off kind of rough, but since then we've kind of gotten it together, and we're doing our job now.
Clifton Central welcomes Minden Unity to town on Saturday. Dick, traditionally, the further north you go in a lot of brackets, the tougher the competition is. GCMS goes north here along with Clifton Central. A lot of pressure on the Falcons, though, as they try and three-peat. What do you make of their chances?
Well, I understand, that they think they ought to get back there again, but it's going to be a lot tougher. They've lost a lot of skilled people in the last 2 years. But, you develop that mindset that that's where they need to be. A lot of times, you can't underestimate just the mindset of, that they expect to win when they step on the field. But if you think about it, they're going to have a tough second-round matchup, I believe, with Sterling Newman, who they beat in the semifinals the first time they made a trip to the championship game. So I'm sure Sterling Newman has that on their mind, too.
Pana leads the south side of the bracket as the 1 seed. They get 5-4 Redbud. Oakwood hosts Nokomis, while 4 seed Bismarck Henning Rossville Alvin draws number 13 El Dorado. Villa Grove Heritage makes the trip to Nashville to play the 8-1 Hornets. Stan, who do you like in this quad?
Well, I think the game's going to come down, I believe, to Pana and Bismarck. They're established teams. Bismarck this year's passed the ball a little bit more the first third of the season, I think, sort of preparing for stuff that's going to happen later because they knew they had the Leahy boy. Running was not going to be the problem. So I think that's going to be a really good game between them and Pana.
All right, we continue down the 2A South bracket. Moreau Forsyth is the 2 seed hosting Cesar-Valier. Auburn goes to Chester, while St. Teresa gets 5-4 Hamilton County. Tuscola rounds it out, hosting Flora. Dick, not taking away anything from the other teams in this quad here, but this is all shaping up, in my eyes at least, to a St. Teresa Moreau Forsyth rematch. It'd be in the quarterfinals this year, but that was a heck of a game last year in the semifinals, just 2 points. Moreau Forsyth ended up winning it.
Absolutely, and Maroa, year in and year out, they just reload and they do a great job. I think they're a little bit more run-oriented this year than they have been in the past, but they still throw the ball enough that you got to be prepared up for both sides of the game. St. T, obviously, when you lose a running back as good as Wright was, you're not going to fill those shoes totally in 1 year or ever. But they're doing a great job again, and they're going to be a hard out, I think, in this side.
Sophomore Denham Cook has certainly been good this year, trying to replace or at least fill in for what Jacardier Wright did last year. Like Dick mentioned, Maroa Forsyth has been one of the most consistent programs in not only the area but the state the last decade. 7 trips to the state championship game with 1 championship and 6 runner-up finishes. WCIA3's Marley Weirda joins us now with more on how they plan to get back.
Well, Brett, the Trojans' offense has been unrivaled. For 5 games during the regular season, they put up 40 points or more with a season-high 76 against Riverton. And their secret weapon this year has been a big threat in the backfield.
Bryson Bowes would be one of the heaviest linemen on the team, but instead of blocking, he's running the ball.
Just personally knowing that I'm just much bigger than every kid on the defensive side, I feel like it's a huge advantage.
At 230 pounds, the junior is one of the leading rushers for the Trojans. Bryson's combination of size and agility has earned him more than 700 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns during the regular season.
Our kids know what to expect from him in the weight room. He lifts with our linemen rather than our skill kids. He's tough to tackle one-on-one, so we definitely want to get him with his pads lowered and a full head of steam, and he's tough to bring down then.
I mean, I've been pretty successful in the backfield, but to be honest with you, it doesn't start without the linemen block for me, and once they do their job, I can do my job.
Bryson has another job as well, and that's on the defense as an outside linebacker. The Trojans are allowing less than 2 touchdowns a game on average and hope to bring that same fire back to the state title game for the 4th straight year.
We definitely this year, we really want to seal the deal. I think we have a great opportunity. We always have to, during the playoffs, you can't lose. If you lose, you go home, and we just got to get that mindset that we're not going to lose, and we'll go from there and go back to state and hopefully win it this year.
The 2nd seed Trojans will get Cesar in the first round of the playoffs. They play Saturday at 1 p.m. at home.
Marley, thanks. We're halfway home on the Friday Football Fever playoff preview show. After the break, we're talking Class 3A with trips to Paxton and Unity still ahead. The lone area team on the north end of the Class 3A bracket is Paxton Buckley Loda. The Panthers get a home contest with Chicago Carver. PBL is a 5 seed, and its 7 wins heading into the playoffs match the season total from last year. That's a positive sign for first-year head coach Josh Pritchard. Defense has been his go-to. The Panthers only allowed 14 points a game to lead the Sangamon Valley Conference. Their only 2 losses were to GCMS in the season opener and Clifton Central in Week 7. Pritchard and the Panthers say they feel good heading into the postseason.
We want to continue to get better. I think we have down what we need to get down, but now it's just preparing for each team that we're going to play. But I think our kids are ramped up and ready to go.
Kind of our offensive perspective is if our defense gives us good field position, then we're going to score. And so our defense kind of takes that upon themselves that we need to have our offense out on the field as much as possible because our offense is pretty good and we need them out there as much as possible to score points for us.
In Chicago Carver on Saturday. The south half of the 3A bracket has 4 local teams led by undefeated Williamsville. The Bullets take on St. Joseph Ogden. The Spartans get in as the 15 seed. SJO is 5-4 for the 3rd time in 4 years under head coach Sean Skinner. The winner of that game will face either DuQuoin or defending state champ Monticello. North Mac plays unbeaten Vandalia. We talked about the 2A North bracket being tough. Well, the 3A South bracket has 4 9-0 teams in it. Do you see an upset here between the Spartans or Sages as they try and, advance?
It's going to be a tough task, and especially have to go on the road to their field and play. Cully's got to go down to, Monticello has to go down to DuQuoin. DuQuoin has a rich history of playoff football, but Cully's going to present some problems to them because I don't think they see the multitude of formations that Cully puts out there. So, I mean, he's got a legitimate shot that he could pull the upset there.
Let's talk 4A now, where the South teams are all rejoicing that Rochester goes to 5A. We've got 5 teams in this part of the bracket. Taylorville gets in at 5-4. They go against a really good Illinois Valley Central team that still hasn't lost. Unity back in the postseason after missing out a year ago. They get another Central Illinois team in Clinton. The Maroons just making their 2nd appearance in the playoffs in the last 15 years. Making the playoffs was the standard at Unity for decades. The Rockets made 24 straight appearances before missing out last season. So needless to say, getting back this fall means a lot for a program that prides itself in success. After losing the season opener to eventual Illini Prairie Conference champ IVC, the Rockets have rattled off 8 straight and say they're starting the postseason ready to make some noise.
We're grateful. We're really grateful since we missed out on a lot last year, and we're grateful to be back and have a lot of returners, and we're ready to go. We're fired up.
It means a lot, you know, after what happened last year, coming back from kind of a downfall of a season, you know, getting able to put in the work in the summer, put in the work in the spring, you know, the whole offseason, just get everything clicking as one team and getting back to where we should be.
Unity and Clinton, Saturday at 2. Stan, you've known Scott Hamilton a long time. What makes him so successful in what he does with his program?
Well, he's just extremely knowledgeable, and he's not above going to someone else and trying to learn something that'll make him a better coach. And then he's just had such longevity in his assistant coaches.
We've still got more to come on the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show. After our final timeout, we're breaking down the Class 5 and 6A brackets as we check in with Mount Zion and Danville as well. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show. Just 2 more brackets to go as we count down to kickoff in the postseason. Mount Zion gets the top seed and draw MacArthur in the first round. More on that game in a moment. Rochester moves up to 5A. The Rockets host LaSalle Peru, while Sacred Heart Griffin is an 11 seed. Haven't seen them that low in years. The Cyclones travel to Morris. And there are a lot of happy people in 4A, Stan, that Rochester gets bumped up after all that success and what they've been able to do in those state titles. What does this mean for these 4A schools?
You know, I'm sure that IVC, Effingham, those teams have a little better feeling than they were going to have. So I think they'll be fine, but I think the sleeper is Kankakee Bishop McNamara coming around. They play in the Suburban League up there, the Metro Suburban, and they played schools from 700 students to 3,000, and they play some Chicago Powers, and I know 6 and 3 to them, they may not care who's down here. They're just that good right now.
Meanwhile, Mount Zion caps its first undefeated regular season since 2008. That team only made it to the second round. This year's group has its sights set way higher than that, and the Braves are battle-tested. Out of the 29 teams in the state still undefeated, MTZ has the second most playoff points out of that group with 45. The Braves will play MacArthur in a game a lot of people are excited to see between the 2 Decatur area schools.
You know, I think it's going to be a unique situation for both football programs. We play in all of the sports, and, you know, to finally get a chance to play each other in football, I think it's going to be a special occasion. I think it's going to bring the crowds out from Mount Zion and Decatur to the game.
It's a lot of fun for our kids just to see a different opponent, somebody that's across town that we know. So it should be a lot of fun. It should be a great atmosphere.
Mount Zion and MacArthur kick off Saturday at 1. Our final bracket tonight with area teams is Class 6A. Danville loads up and heads to undefeated Glenwood. The Titans are a 2 seed and the Central State 8 champions, while 10 seed Springfield visits number 7 Lamont. Danville is back dancing after missing out a season ago. Following a slow start, losing 2 of their first 3 games, they've gone on a big run since, winning 5 of 6. Their only loss in that time was a 3-point game to Big 12 champ Normal Community. Despite being big underdogs to Glenwood, the AP's #1 ranked team in 6A for most of the year, the Vikings say they're confident in their ability to compete on the road.
As long as we come out and believe in each other and know that we got each other, I don't think nobody can mess with us. As long as we play as a team and step up to play.
Last week we played a team that had a better record than us. We're going to treat it just like that, come to the game and just play our game, do our job, and hopefully come out with the win.
Danville at Glenwood kicks off Saturday at 1. Danville has proven its ability to compete with anybody in its conference. They run the ball really well. Devin Miles had 300-plus yards last week, but how does that stack up against a team that can throw and run the ball really well in Glenwood?
Well, Glenwood, anytime you throttle SHG and Rochester in the same year, you got to be really, really good. So if Danville's going to have any chance in that game.
And 6A is always tough, especially in the South when you have East St. Louis at 9-0. Crete-Monee is also 9-0 as well, and not to temper any expectations from Glenwood fans who knew they had a pretty good season going all along, but that is tough with those 2 9-0 teams.
So Crete-Monee is going to be a tough out, and they were there last year, I believe. So, you know, there's some tough teams there.
We'd be remiss not to talk about the 8-man football state tournament going on as well. 14 teams will tee it up for the championship as Milford Cissna Park looks to defend its title. The Bearcats are the top seed with a perfect 9-0 record. Polo also still unbeaten. Those 2 are the favorites Just 6 programs played 8-man ball last year, so a big increase this season. A lot of that has to do with scheduling and co-ops, conferences, realignment, all of that, but it comes down to this. Should more teams, especially small schools, go to this 8-man game?
Well, I would think that if you still want to keep football and you don't have the numbers, the 8-man game is obviously something you would want to look into.
Districts are also a hot topic around the state right now. A proposal passed last December to go to districts, eliminating the way we do playoffs now, but it was a close vote and it still could change by 2021 when it all is set to start. The IHSA released mock districts earlier this year. A lot of unhappy people voiced their opinion, saying moving to districts would actually be worse than what it is now. And so, Stan, should we go to districts?
Well, I think it's gaining some momentum with the coaches that you just talk around different schools. So I think they're warming up to it a little bit, but some schools are having a hard time finding games.
Grass always looks greener on the other side, Dick, but is it really greener?
Yeah, you know, I was kind of a proponent for it because we were having trouble scheduling games when I was the AD there at St. Joe Ogden. I think the IHSA is going to insist that it goes into effect for 2 years. Just because there was so many people wanting it for so long that they're going to say, well, you got to vote it in. You need to have it for at least 2 years. I knew there was going to be some hardships and there was going to be some upset people.
We will see a lot of people voicing their opinion on one side or the other. There's always going to be unhappy people no matter what. All right, that's going to do it for the Friday Football Fever playoff preview show. For Craig Schote and Marley Weirda and our Hall of Fame coaches Stan Winky and Dick Duval, guys, thanks for your time coming in. We will say good night.
This has been the Friday Football Fever Playoff Preview Show, a special presentation of WCIA3 Sports and sponsored by Lohman Ray Insurance Group and Illinois State University.